addiction is a disease. So people think it's a character defect or like they're morally bankrupt. And it's like, no, like a lot of times it's just, you just haven't found the right help for a disease and it should be treated as such.
Welcome to Sober Dad Crew, the podcast where we talk about all things sobriety, recovery, parenting, music, tattoos, work, and more. For more information, please visit soberdadcrew.com. All right, my guest this episode is Brodey, Mann, founder of Elevated Conduct, a clothing company dedicated to those embracing sobriety and the journey of recovery. Brodey, welcome to Sober Dad Crew.
Thanks, Stephen. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's our second attempt. We had some time zone issues, but you're in that weird flexible time zone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Which is 2 hours, 3 hours, just kind of guess. But yeah, I'm glad we worked it out. How many kids do you have?
I have one son. His name is Hudson, and he is about 16 months old now.
Is he walking yet?
Yeah, he started actually walking around about 10 or 11 months old.
Oh, you're in trouble.
So he started early.
I just remember, because mine are older, moving all the fragile things higher and higher.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, oh, now I'm moving up the records. Now I'm moving that. Because as soon as they can pull themselves up, it's a game changer.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's been broken coffee cups and vases and trial and error as we've learned how how far his reach can go.
Yeah, it's funny. Oh my God, so many years ago, before my oldest was born, with my first wife, we were foster parents and we had to take this class. And I remember the woman sort of talking about like things getting broken and all that. And she was like, whose problem is it if it breaks? It's not really the little kids because they're just being a little kid. So if you don't want something broken, it's sort of your responsibility to put it out of reach. I thought that's pretty good advice.
It is. Yeah. Who are you going to get mad at? You should have moved it.
Yeah. It's usually yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, did you know you always wanted to be a dad? Was that always in your radar?
Yeah. 100%. It's just kind of always, I guess, been in my DNA. It's always been like an innate feeling. My dad got remarried, and he had my second sister, when I was about 18. So I was a senior in high school, and then he had my other sister Emma when I was a freshman at college. So I got some exposure being around young children at that age, and it kind of clicked there. And then my oldest sister, she actually has 4 kids, and I became an uncle. I was about 20 when I became an uncle. So yeah, it's always kind of been in my journey, I guess you would say.
Yeah. I have a blended family. So my oldest are 22 and 18, and then my stepkids, but anyone who listens to this knows they're just my kids,
Yeah, for
are
sure.
9 and 13. But how is that blending for you?
Yeah, it's so it's an interesting dynamic, right? So my mom and my stepdad have been married 35 years. So they've been married the majority of my life, and then my dad had my sisters, and it was interesting. I mean, it was pretty cool because I was in a position, I think, to be the age difference allowed me to not really. There was no competition, right? I could just be a big brother, which was really cool. And then I will say though, it's kind of that funny dynamic where when my sister had kids, it was like, hey, this is your aunt, and she's a year younger than you. Like that kind of funny
the family
thing.
tree gets funny.
Yeah, but no, it works great. I mean, it's cool. I mean, they're more like cousins. Just their interaction level is like that.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. To the point, you're kind of comfortable, or how you like to tell it. Can you talk a little bit about your sober journey?
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely comfortable with that. I think for me, it's not so much the war stories, right? Like I clearly had an issue with it, and I had to do something about it. But one of the biggest challenges for me is that I'm, stubborn and hard headed by nature. So it was a very challenging journey, I would say, from the time I knew I needed to get some help before I actually strung time together. It was probably a period of 5 to 6 years. I've been to four treatment centers. I've been to detox centers probably 6, 7, 8, 9 times. and a few emergency room visits there. I actually was able to string together a year of sobriety early on, but it just gave me a false sense that there really wasn't an issue. I was like, oh, 1 year, okay, let's
Right,
went back.
I did that.
Yeah,
Easy.
went out and did some more research, right, on my own, and it really just resulted in, for lack of a better term, like my alcoholism just brought me completely to my knees, and there was two options, right, like really commit, get help, or die at a really young age.
Not the best choice. I mean, the best
No.
choice, getting help. So, when did you meet your wife in all this?
So I had known her before, and over the course of, so like kind of in and out of sobriety, and then we kind of lost touch and then reconnected around the time I was 3 or 4 months sober this time. So I'll have 3 years in August 1st this year. So it was around that time, about 3 to 4 months into this latest bout, that we connected in a relationship standpoint.
Nice. And do you do a program?
Yes, firm advocate of it. So I'm actively involved in AA. Right. I go to meetings. I sponsor newcomers. I work with a sponsor. I work a pretty strong program.
Nice. Yeah, that wasn't my path, but
Hmm.
I know so many people that works for, and I would say, whatever you find that works for you, and that 12 steps works so well for so many people. Why do you think that particular approach works for you?
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that. Like I'm never. I don't think it's a one size fits all approach for anything. So I love when people have things that have worked, because right, that's great. It's worked for me because inherently, from my upbringing, just my core belief system, I am a religious, spiritual based person. So when they talk about believing in a higher power and a thing of that nature, it wasn't really hard for me to grasp. And about turning your life over to the care of God, that for me clicked. And the other aspect of it was the proof really worked well for me from seeing it work in other people's lives, like going to those meetings and hearing men share about where they were. And then I come to find out they've got 10, 15, 20 years of sobriety. Um, I'm a big person where I need proof, so seeing men do it
Yeah,
and hearing about
there's
it,
a lot of evidence there.
oh yeah, I mean, I don't get into the ins and outs, and but like, it clicks. It's been around for over 100 years now, and people are still doing it. So there's something there.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things too that's incredible, it's just free,
Hmm.
right? It's just there. There's no copays. There's no any of the things that can be a hang up. You just got to walk through the door. And I
Yeah, and
think
yeah,
that's so important, that just how accessible it is.
yeah, and Stephen, you brought up a really good point. Is that it's the right, the core, the singleness of purpose, right? There's no membership, there's no dues, there's no fees. Like, they kind of were way ahead of their time back in the 30s when they thought about this, because they stay out of everything, right? Like, their core principles are, they don't get involved in politics, and they don't
Yep.
endorse. They just, we have no opinion on outside matters, is like one of the first things they teach you in AA. And we don't talk about it when you're in those rooms, and it's free. And for some people, I know this to be true, is they love the fellowship sometimes more than the program, because it's like they love the connection piece of just other people that they can talk to and get free therapy.
Yeah, I mean, I always just say community is so important. The rooms are probably some of the most politically diverse places in America right
Oh,
now.
for
They just
sure.
no one's taking a poll, and I think that
Yeah.
that's actually, it kind of shows a great example, right? It's about community, so a
Hmm.
community can come together around shared values, and
Yeah.
you don't have to get caught up in, well, you voted for this person, or you believe that. And I think, there's a real example of that we should all look at right now, kind of as a country where we seem to be happy yelling at each other a lot.
Oh, for sure. I couldn't agree more. I mean, we don't, you don't talk about it, and it's amazing where, I mean, think about it, right? Like, if you think about the whole approach to recovery, I'd be pretty hypocritical of what we're trying to accomplish if I find out you voted for somebody. So I'm not going to pick up your call when you're in need. That's
Yeah,
terrible. Like
when you're
never,
on
it
the
would,
edge, yeah.
yeah, like, oh, sorry, they align this way. Call somebody
Yeah,
else. No,
I
no,
don't like your hat,
yeah,
so,
not going
work
to
it out on
happen.
your own.
Right.
Well, and I think that's another thing is, right, there's always just someone you can call. The
Mhm.
lifeline is always there, and that's
Oh,
just
if I
amazing.
open my phone and I just put AA, right? It's got names of it'll be like Tom, Barry, Gino, Tony, like A. Like it's
Yeah,
just hundreds and hundreds of names.
yeah, and you'll know you get somebody.
For sure. You may not always like their advice or what they have to say, but you'll get somebody.
Yeah, but, probably the right advice too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's usually the good kind, it's the kind you don't want to hear.
Yeah, yeah, we don't always like what people tell us, especially when deep down we know it's true.
Uh-huh, for sure.
Let's pivot a little bit. I wanna talk about your clothing company,
Mhm.
Elevated Conduct. So how did that start for you and, kinda dig into the mission?
Yeah, so the idea for elevated conduct happened actually when I was living at home with my parents after my last bout before I got sober, and just going through the emotions of trying to get sober. And I was just thinking, I'm like, like there's nothing really aside from the meeting rooms, I guess, and some social media stuff for people to like rally around, right? Like if you're a sports fan and you go to any airport in the world, like I'm a huge Ohio State Buckeyes fan. I went to Germany and I saw another Ohio State fan, right? Um, in sobriety, I don't want to say we're trying to create a uniform, but we don't have something that's visual, right? There's this big thing around anonymity, which I totally respect. Um, so I'm like, well, how can I create something that represents sobriety, the values and the attitudes that we have, and also protects your anonymity, right? Like when you look at our clothing, it doesn't say anything about sobriety because I don't want people to be defined by their sobriety. Um, and then the mission behind that aside is from building a visible community is that part of our proceeds go to fund people trying to get into sober living because the data there is enormous. People that can get into sober living situations have, I think it's like a 75% chance higher rate at one plus years of recovery. And I know there's a lot of people that I run into them all the time that are really trying to get in, and sober living is not cheap. If you haven't done any research in it, it seems to go up every year.
Yeah, and that's just such a struggle for people, and I was involved in an organization where I live. I was on the board, and it was a detox, but no one left there with, like, a business card in their hand, right? They were
Hmm.
like, "We're bringing you to the next thing,"
Right.
so that there's no gap, right? There's
Yep.
no going out the door, there's no falling in. If you're unhoused or struggling, you're not gonna fall in to what you're doing before. You just move to the next thing until you're really able to be on your own. And a sober living is really, it's like a full time meeting.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I have friends in AA that run them, and it's been incredible. I didn't realize because I've never been in one. Like I've never been a client of one. Um, how structured they are, right? Like curfews and meetings and service commitments, and you have to have a job. And I mean, just the whole approach is an incredible structure because most addicts and alcoholics, right? We don't have structure. We don't like it, and we need to be introduced to it.
Yeah, one of the people I interviewed, Sam Dominic, who's a chef, and he had been a chef, and then he ended up being unhoused, and through sober living, if I'm remembering right, he ended up working at a pizza parlor, but it got him back, and now and he's like pretty renowned where he lives, and he's been on Chopped and all this stuff. So
That's awesome.
he it's a great example of that. And I've been working a little bit with a group up here that's trying to start a sober living place for moms, but where the
Mm,
kids are also there because a
okay.
lot of women are afraid they're going to lose their kids. So they don't want to go into treatment. And so the whole mission behind this is like, no, you can be there with your kids.
Uh-huh.
There's going to be daycare and activities for the kids while you do meetings. And, they're in the fundraising stage, which is tricky because everything's expensive.
Oh
And,
yeah. Yeah.
trying to fix up a house for, I think it was 16, moms and their kids. is a lot, and all the
Oh, for
facilities
sure.
and staffing it. So like I get why things are expensive, but
Mhm.
it's hard when not everybody has the same level of access,
Oh, of
you know,
course, yeah.
to things, and that's tricky. And if you're really in bad shape, you're not going to have health insurance that's
No.
going to pay this. And so if it's not a sober living facility that's just free, and some people stay there for a long time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, a year plus.
And I can't imagine what the cost of something like that is. But
Mhm.
yeah, back to the clothing. One reason I sort of started this is be a bit of a public face too. Like
Mhm.
I'm not as a person in recovery what you're picturing in your head.
Mhm.
Like being out there on LinkedIn
Mhm.
and talking about it. And I had a colleague, and she messaged me privately. She's like, I like what you're doing. I'm in that club. I'm not public about it, which is also people's right.
Yeah.
You should only share what you're comfortable sharing. But it was like, okay, there's a lot of us out there that aren't
Mhm.
talking about it.
Yep.
So to be able to sort of be like, look, we're not what you think. It's not what you're picturing. Is a lot of everybody struggles. I feel like as an employee that I've been through struggles and worked through struggles, like that's just a good example and makes me a better employee and a better like team member for my colleagues who might be struggling.
Oh, no, it 100% does. I mean, what you learn about yourself, and for me, I mean, prior to getting sober, I will say that I my empathy level was not there, right? Like, I just was one of those bootstrap type people, and, to your point, though, I think the stigma, scares a ton of people for, one, seeking help, and then even after they got help, wanting to talk about it, which to your it's fine. But the United States Attorney General is the one that said that, addiction is a disease, it's not a choice. So, Surgeon General, I'm sorry, not Attorney General. So, that's one of the biggest things is, right, like, people are just think it's a character defect or like they're morally bankrupt. And it's like, no, like a lot of times it's just, you just haven't found the right help for a disease and it should be treated as such.
Right. And, they talk about that mental health, right? Like an antidepressant. If you had type 1 diabetes,
Hmm.
you would use insulin because that's what you will not live without it. And
Yep.
it seems like diseases of the brain, mental health diseases have this weird, to your point, sort of this view of character flaw. Like
Hmm.
somehow you did something when it's really often a matter of wiring and chemistry. Like you can't control that. I mean, I just interviewed a woman who's bipolar, and she's like, I am wired this way.
Hmm.
Like I, I can take medicine, I can do things, but this is inherent to just
Yeah,
how I am. And so
absolutely.
I shouldn't have to apologize for that or be embarrassed about it. But
No, no,
people
no.
still are.
And I'm open when I share in meetings or when people ask me, I am 100% open that, yeah, I had a drinking problem, right? But I also had some depression issues. And for me personally, AA wasn't going to fix those. So I sought outside help to get that. And my depression, I addressed that just like I would my alcoholism and the better approach. So I'm a full advocate of people seeking help for those things that they need.
Yeah, I've done a lot of therapy over the years and had been on antidepressants in the past, and it really helped me. It got
Oh,
me to this point where I could actually like sort of see who I was again and feel balanced. And the other thing is if you're on like an antidepressant and you're drinking, it's pretty much not allowing that medicine to work. And I
no, for
think,
sure.
there's definitely like you got to address both those things. And I think often, I mean, my doctor prescribed me an antidepressant and never really asked, like,
Mm,
or suggested that if you do drink alcohol, this medicine's not going to work for you.
right.
And even, I think my current general practitioner, she's probably the only one that always just asks in my appointments. Like I just had my physical last week
Hmm.
and she always asks, and I'm like, I'm 15 plus years. Like I'm good. Like my wife's
Right.
sober. Like everything that's like beautiful is connected to that. Like
Yeah.
I'm, I'm never tempted. Even like I never think, oh, I want to drink. I just, cause I know now all that I built, could crumble. So I'm never really tempted, but that comes, a number of years in that not necessarily that it's easy because life's not always easy, but it's not like I think about it every day. I
For
just
sure.
don't drink,
Yeah.
you know?
The longer you go, the more distance you put between yourself, that is it. And I mean, I heard somebody say one time, I'm sure it's a cliche, but they talk about anything you put in front of your sobriety, you'll lose. I've I've tried that method and it's 100% accurate. Like as soon as you start, saying this is more important, that's more important. Just give it time and it'll wash out.
Yeah. But if you give the sobriety time, then you can line other things up around it. I mean,
Absolutely right.
my wife and I always say there wouldn't be an us if we weren't both sober.
Mhm.
I mean,
Absolutely.
when we met, I mean, that was an early conversation that we had, that we were both sober and like that, my stepkids and even my oldest not my oldest, my second oldest, she's 18, doesn't really remember,
Oh, that's a
because she was like
blessing.
3 when I stopped
Yeah.
drinking. So, and my stepkids only know me this way.
Right. It's so
It's
amazing.
just like who I am. Like your son, like he's never going to see that version,
Nope.
which is pretty
God,
great.
yeah. God willing.
Because there's whole organizations out there that help people who, I'm talking about Al-Anon, that help
Oh
people
yeah.
who did live through that stuff. Because it is hard for the people that are surrounded by,
Oh yeah.
people with substance use disorder or active addiction.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there are one of the things I've noticed that's a really growing dynamic is adult children of alcoholics. That group is growing fast, and I mean, even with existing people in AA, they found this group and they're going to that too. So that's been a really big dynamic.
Well, and I think also that helps, like the bigger picture of sort of ending, you know, trauma and substance abuse often gets passed down from generation to generation. So any ways we can find to disrupt that
Hmm.
are super important.
Yeah, and they talk about alcoholism and addiction being genetic, right? Like kind of predisposition and things like that. And I think there's arguments for both, right? Like is it nature versus nurture kind of thing, right? Is it the environment you grow up in? But I would say that I've told people before. I said if my son one day grows up to be an alcoholic or have a problem with addiction, w- that's okay, but it won't be because I set the example that enabled it, right? Like if that's his journey and that's something I have to help with, I don't want that, but it won't be because I was a contributing factor to it.
Right. And there's, having older kids, a lot comes at you
Yeah.
that
Uh-huh.
I never would have really thought about or anticipated,
Mhm.
going into it. It just is what it is. It's not a straight line. It's not, without its bumps. I mean,
Oh,
kids
for sure.
struggle and in the world, it's a challenging world to raise kids in right now. And, things just come at you. But when they do, being sober and clear headed is such a gift
Oh,
because
it's
you're
cheat
like,
code.
I'm present in this crisis. I'm not
Mhm.
running from it. I'm like looking at it and figuring out like what's the way through.
Oh, for sure. It's spot on. You're level-headed, you're present, and you're not, there's nothing else going on. Like, let's just address this situation with a clear head.
Yeah, and in the good times, I always
Oh, for
say like in
sure.
the worst times and the best times, it's like my highest level of gratitude.
Mhm.
With the company,
Yeah.
is that your full-time gig or are you trying to scale it? Like what are your goals with Elevated Conduct?
Yeah, so, no, it is not my full-time job, so I'm actually the vice president of a commercial landscape company here in the valley, but no, so ultimately, yeah, I would love for it to be my full-time job, and I'm working, actively to scale it, but it's very challenging, right? Like, just because number 1, I don't have a background in retail and clothing, that's not my background at all, but number 2 is just, like, the ins and outs of just everything about it. And when you're, what's that saying? If you try and chase two rabbits, you don't catch either. So working full time and then trying to do this with the time that I have, and then be a father and have, a good partner to my girlfriend. Like, it's just a million different directions.
I hear you. I mean, this
Yeah.
is I fit this like it's 8 a.m. your time on a Saturday, 11
Mhm.
my time. Like I fit it in around all the things because
Yeah.
yeah, I'm marketing director for a architecture firm,
Mhm.
and it's a big job. So and I always say family first, but
Yep.
in the clothing, like I have swag on my website, but it's all like the print on demand. Like I don't have the resources to hold inventory.
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh, I wanna get patches made to just send to people as, like, a thank you." I'm like, "Oh, man, this is like they're $8 a piece," like, the
Oh, yeah.
reality of producing product and sizing, right? Like, how many
Mhm.
shirts do you get? What size? Like, that stuff is super tricky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and, I'm a research nerd to begin with, so I didn't have any of these, like, delusions, or sorry, illusions, right? That this would just be hot off everybody would want what I had, because, like, of course, I came up with it in my head, so I think it's great. It doesn't mean everybody else will. So I was very, tactical about what I bought, how much I bought of what, because I didn't wanna get in a position where I'm like, "We don't have any savings." Like, "Sorry,
Yeah.
nobody wants our stuff."
Well,
So
we got
it's
shirts.
yeah, the pressure is off from that standpoint. Like, what we're doing here is not to a point where if I don't sell XYZ, we miss a rent payment. It's not that, because number one, I don't want it to be about pressure, because then you do things that are out of character when you get desperate. So I organically, it'll come in time. I'm confident in it. It's just about exposure, right? Because it's the biggest thing, right? It takes forever to get exposure, because what do we get flooded with all day? Ads.
Yeah, I mean, this podcast, it's what did I just post? Episode 71, and
Yeah.
it's, like, really it grows, but it grows, like, slowly, and I've had a couple of well-known people on. I thought, "This is gonna be it." Like, I had the
Yeah.
singer of Everclear on. I was like, "This is it. It's gonna
Yep.
blow up." And, no shade on him. It was great he was on, but he didn't really share it on his out to his
Mhm.
network. I mean,
Mhm.
very gracious to be on and tell his story. The people that kinda give me the biggest growth are just, like, the regular folks who are, like, willing to tell their story and sort of share it in their networks, but it just is this slow growth, and I presented on podcasting at one point for one of my kids' classes, and one of the kids was like, You're on Spotify, like, you must make all this money." I'm like, "I lose money doing this every
Oh,
month, like,
yeah.
this is self-funded. I'm
Uh-huh.
paying all the stuff, I
Mhm.
do it because it's sort of my recovery tool is doing this podcast, but I've talked to enough people now that are like helped by it.
Mhm.
So, to put a little bit of resources of my own, yeah, would it be like cool to monetize it? Sure. Or find a sponsor? Sure. I mean, I can get a little irreverent, so I also don't want anyone to like tell me what to talk about,
Yeah,
but
right.
a little something to cover the expenses, but I don't even sell that much swag. It's on there because there's no risk for me because it's print on demand. So
Mhm.
it's easy, but it's not like covering the cost, but it doesn't really matter either. It's not why I do it. I mean, sure,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be cool to like have this be my gig? Sure. It would have to really scale to replace the daytime job I have.
Oh, for sure, and that's if it's in the path, it's in the path, right? Like, that's why I've kinda, since I got sober, I'm not in the outcome business anymore, right? I do the best that I can, and I surrender the outcome. Whatever, as long as I tried, it worked, great. It didn't, not my, I didn't contribute to the failure like I used to. I stayed out of my own way.
Yeah, you didn't self-sabotage. I mean, we do the best we can with the tools that we have.
Mhm. 100%.
And, I always sort of say every day, I just try and be like incrementally a little better,
Mhm.
little better parent, little better spouse, little better employee. Like if every day, just a tiny little bit, I try and be a tiny little bit better. In the big picture, that kind of scales up.
Oh, for
But if you're
sure.
trying to take these giant leap guest appearance from your son,
Yep. He just
you are
threw a
at the
toy over
busy
the wall.
age. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay. It's all good. It's happy sounds.
Yeah.
Um, but if I was like just stopped doing this after 10 episodes because somehow I didn't blow up,
Mhm.
then it wouldn't be out there and I wouldn't kind of have reached anybody really. I mean, it's hard out there to get audience, which is also okay. I mean, there's just tons of podcasts out there. I'm not Dax Shepard, so like I'm not going to have 500,000 people streaming an episode. I mean, it'd be kind of cool actually, but
Yeah.
it's just not going to happen. So just setting realistic expectations and like, what are you trying to achieve, And that's not just like in a side business, just in life. Like
Mhm.
what do you want your legacy to be? What are you trying to achieve? Like to me, like I want people just to be like, he was a good dad. Like that to
Yep.
me is like the number one thing.
Yeah. No, you hit the nail on the head. I think, I don't know, I've really, over the last, like, 3 years of this journey, I just stopped chasing, tangible things. It's just, to me, it's just that serenity, that peace of mind, that being a good father, being a present father. That's more important than me because 'cause I've had all the other stuff in full addiction, and it went away, and it didn't add up to anything for me, and, being able to be there for my family is worth more than any possession I've ever had.
Yeah. And I think there's also this like the grass is always greener dynamic that
Mhm.
I mean, and I think the world right now, and social media sort of feeds into that in a false way, right? Like you just see all this stuff and you think, oh, if only the
Oh,
if only,
yeah.
if only this, if only that, if only like I were rich, if only you can just get lost in all that stuff, and
Mhm.
you're not seeing the gifts you do have. I mean, my one of my grandmothers always talked about being greatly blessed, and it's that viewpoint. Like look around you and look at your blessings. Don't like focus on the things you don't have. Like, maybe I don't have the fanciest car or like, but what does it bring me if I do have this super fancy car? Like, what at the end of the day is that other than more expensive repairs?
Strokes your ego, right? And that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, like, they, that's another cool thing about AA, right? Is like the meetings I go to are like a nice, I guess, a nicer part of the area in Scottsdale out here, and you see guys that come in there with more money than they know what to do with, and they just cannot find one thing to be grateful for. And then you got some guy who's like, couple months had a jail, and he's got a job working minimum wage, and he cannot stop talking about how grateful he is that he has a one-bedroom apartment and he's saving up for his first car, and and it's like, wow, right? Like it just shows you that.
Yeah. Yeah. The fancy car doesn't make your life any better.
No,
I mean, certainly having a level of income where you're not struggling is certainly a nice thing. I mean, there's
for sure.
somebody did, and I might not get this right, research at one point, and they figured out, and I think it was, and it really depends on where you live, but they said $75,000 a year of income. Like,
Mhm.
is this point, and it's probably higher now, where people are happy, and the amount of like work and effort to make more after that for most people, it doesn't really pay off. Like for most people, once they're comfortable and you're not worried about your grocery bills and all that, you're pretty happy. Like we don't need a zillion dollars. We need to be like no one should be struggling on how to feed their family,
Mhm.
right? Or struggling on how to pay their rent.
Yep.
You don't need to be a billionaire. Like what are you going to do with all that money?
Mhm.
Like let's figure out how to make most people who are working like able to not worry about feeding their family. Like that would be a pretty great thing.
Oh, for sure. It'd be a great solution.
I always, and you're early into kind of the parenting thing, but have you
Mhm.
figured out like any any things that work really well for you as a parent, or things that don't work well, or advice? I always
Mm.
like to kind of ask dads, like, well,
Yeah,
what have you figured out any secret sauce?
I would. I would say the biggest thing I've realized, good and bad, right? I've had the wins and losses is that he is at an age where he so quickly is gonna match my energy. And I hate when people say vibe because it's like they say it all the time now. But like whatever I'm putting out, he's like a little sponge to it. So if if I come home and I've had a terrible day at work and my attitude is just not great, right? Or my patience is worn thin, it's not long before he gets pretty fussy, right? And his patience, and he's not liking what's going on. So I think it's that, you know, I'm not a naturally patient person, and I need to be more patient every day, but I would say, like, my cheat code to anybody would be find your patience, practice it. If that's, through personal meditation or prayer or reading, but, like, you gotta learn to find that patience because he is learning how to live and how to be a kid, and he can't communicate the way there's no reasoning with him like that. Like, it is solely about the energy and the calmness that you can put out there to, like, get that, and I do not do that well all the time. I'll be the first to admit it. But when I do, we get along a lot better.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on the patience. That is not always the easiest for me. And I was just reading in a book, and it was something like kids are a barometer, right? Like
Uh-huh.
they are reading the energy, I'll use the vibe, whatever it is of the
Yeah.
room, right? They are feeling that, they're absorbing it, and they're gonna put it back out. And
Oh,
the other thing that sort of helped me too is like developmentally figuring out like where a kid should be, right? Like,
yeah.
when you are 16 months old, these are broadly like what you should be doing. Or when you're 2 and 3, those sort of what they call the terrible twos. Not their terrible twos. That's just the first time kids are sort of starting to pull away from you.
Mhm.
And so they're not trying to be jerks. They're just kids. They're just doing what actually they're supposed to be doing. And
Yeah.
teenagers are the same way. They might slam a few doors. It's not because they hate you or whatever. It's just they're trying to find their way through this path of independence.
Mhm. Yeah, it's that development, aspect you touched on, that's huge, because I think the more you read, right, the more you confuse yourself, right, when it comes to that because, when he first started talking, like, I think we read something that said, like, a kid at between 12 and 15 months could have a vocabulary of 3 words or up to 100. I'm like,
A
100?
bit of a
What
range.
kind of Yeah, I'm like, "Alright," but, he just does things where like this morning, right? Like it cracked me up because our dog wanted to go outside and he's sitting there watching his cartoons. And before he can get up, he hops up out of his little chair and he obviously can't open the door, but he's trying to open the door to let the dog out. I'm like, see, like that learning through just percept. It's just great, right? To see him develop on his own.
Yeah, and kids I think are, they're such a good teacher.
Hmm.
If we watch and listen. I mean, I've had to get more patient because that's the deal. I worked for somebody once and he's like, "Yeah, I had to learn like infinite patience." And I'm not always good about like letting, when there is tension, I always want to fix it. I'm a fixer. And
Hmm.
sometimes like people just need to go cool down.
Oh yeah.
And, and s- my oldest, he was the one, he would always need to go cool down. And eventually, when he got his driver's license, he would like go on a drive and like, then we could kind of connect.
Hmm.
And I'm always like, let's fix it. Gotta fix it. Gotta talk
Yeah.
through everything right now. And I'm like, well, maybe that's not everybody's approach. And that's very like my pleaser, my people pleaser nature comes out in that. And, that's not good. And, one thing I really had to learn along the way was actually how to say no because of that people pleaser thing. And especially in a work environment, because you can say yes to things that and then you're just buried and exhausted because you're not willing to say no. Or, I mean, I learned to come up with this phrase, when we're pursuing work, which we need to do to pursue work, and I finally came up with this phrase like the physics of time is real.
Uh-huh.
So we can add this other thing on, but we have to either take something else off or dial everything else back. So is it worth that? I mean, maybe this replaces something because this is just more important, or maybe we dial everything back to 90% because this is important.
Mhm.
but I'm not working 60 hours a week. I'm not doing it, and I'm not asking my staff to do that who also have families. So like, how are we going to make this so it's like healthy for everybody and still get the job done? And
Yeah.
it took me a long time. And when I was a single parent, there's such a fear of, if I lose my job, I'm screwed.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
like nobody else.
Mhm.
And so there was just sort of like living in this fear-based way, which is also just not a healthy
Yeah.
way to live. And it took a lot of therapy and just years to learn to be like, I'm bringing value. Like, you can't live in fear. You know, if the worst happens, you lose your job, you'll figure it out. And, COVID was sort of interesting lesson for me in that. And I never lost my job, but, for the first time, I was furloughed for a little while.
Yeah.
Um, and had to it was just a few weeks of unemployment, but it took me like a month and a half to get that money. And
Mhm.
fortunately, I had enough saved to cover that. But I was like, oh, this is weird. Like, I've never been in this position. And then in New York, they have this shared work thing that was originally built around agriculture so that you can keep employees on in the off season. And so there's one summer where, because of the COVID unemployment stuff, I was working 3 days a week, but getting unemployment for the balance. I was like, this was actually kind of delightful
Ah,
this
yeah.
summer. I was like, I'm totally hanging with my kids, like
Yeah.
only having to work 3 days a week. This is pretty nice. I mean, that's not the reality now. Unfortunately, we're out of all that stuff because it was hard. But I was like, oh, wow, if I could only work 3 days a week, this would be pretty nice. I mean, there wasn't that
Oh.
much you could also do because it was COVID, but I could hang
Mhm.
out with my kids
Yeah.
in the summer in the Finger Lakes, where there's lots of lakes to swim in New York. It's not
Yeah.
116 degrees.
Yeah. That balance is key. I mean, I think there you were talking about that study where they talked about happiness and compensation. There was, something similar done where it was like a really high percentage of workers would take an extra couple weeks of vacation over a raise. They're like, "I'd rather have time." You can't buy time. So I'd rather just get some more of it.
Yeah, we got bonused one year an extra week. Like, I don't mind a cash bonus, I'm not gonna lie, but they bonused everybody a week of vacation one year, and it was
Mhm.
like, as a parent, your kids are in school, you can chip away at your paid time off
Yeah.
very, very quickly,
Oh, for sure.
and to like want to be able to, but also my employer's really flexible. So parent
Mhm.
conferences or any of that stuff, they're like, yeah, you just do it. Like, I know you're going to
Mhm.
get, you trust you're going to get your job done.
Right, yeah.
If you need to work from home because you're close to the school, you go up to your conference and then you go work from home. I mean, I have the ability to work from home in my job, and not everybody does. But yeah, that extra week was so great that year. I mean, I negotiated at one job once. I mean, they definitely lowballed me on the money, but they really hit me with a lot of paid time off. I'm like, oh, this is like really nice because I'm not stressed at the end of the year
Exactly.
about
Like,
like
"Oh,
running out of that. Like, it's super nice that week between Christmas and New Year's to just take that time off.
oh, for sure."
I
Yeah, but
mean,
then
it's
like you
also
said,
quiet at
oh,
work,
yeah,
but
it's just, you sit there and you have to ration it, right? Like, you don't have enough, and it's like we got birthdays and anniversaries and parties and sick days and this and this and this, and next thing you know, it's like, "Well, damn, we still have Christmas and Thanksgiving left, and what
yeah, and
now?"
I got no time off, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and going to work the day after Thanksgiving is a drag.
Oh, it's horrible. It's terrible.
I mean, there's tons of people who work in retail and it's all about that, but it's also that privilege of having, the kind of work that I do, which is, you know, desk work, and I can
Mhm.
take it anywhere. My dad had cataract surgery, so I was with him for that, but I just brought my computer and I
Oh,
took
nice.
time off, but I was able to, work enough so I didn't totally carve into all my PTO. But it's that work life balance thing is, and I think you see it more in sobriety, right? Like, seeking balance in all things.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's just no I try as best as I can not to over rotate. Yeah, just that level of approach to everything is huge.
Yeah, I mean, before we wrap up,
Mhm.
anything else you want to touch on?
The greatest thing about social media, I think, especially in recovery, is that it's becoming much more visual, right? We're able to find places like your podcast, and we're able to find communities and this, that, and the other. And it's just, I think that I hope if anybody hears our conversation today, that they just maybe something clicks and they realize they aren't alone, and you can turn it all around. You just got to reach out.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful place to stop.
Yep.
Thank you so much for being on.
All right. I appreciate your time, Stephen.
Thanks for listening. Sober Dad Crew is a DIY project by Stephen Kimball, who writes, edits, and produces the show. To support the show, please review it where you listen to podcasts, or visit soberdadcrew.com to buy some merchandise or make a donation.